you are joining us live, well, not live, from Super Booth in Berlin.
Yay.
Behind us you can see the Buchla shed, where they've got bits of Buchla.
Bits of 200E and like the easel as well.
Yeah. And you may also notice the t-shirts. Explain.
So we are massive Suzanne Ciani fans. We are going to be seeing her next month, June the 22nd. She's playing at the Brudenell in Leeds, and Friday the 24th of June at Brudenell in Manchester. We were very privileged to interview her last year, and we thought it was now appropriate to release that interview on video. We have previously released it on audio, and we are now going to show you the video, so check this out.
See you later.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, I know it's morning here. Okay, tell me your names again.
Nikki and Les.
A little coffee, right? A little coffee.
He's got one as well.
I miss Manchester so much. I love Manchester.
Oh, we were wondering whether you'd been before.
Well, the thing is that Finders Keepers Records, Andy Botel. Do you know him?
No, I've heard of Finders Keepers, but...
Yeah, well, Andy Botel, he's from Manchester, and he has a record label called Finders Keepers. And they release, previously unreleased historic recordings. And so he started releasing my early electronic music. And that's kind of what launched this whole, segment of my career. Yeah. So.
Oh, right.
And I was there once for his birthday party. I loved that,
So you will be coming back to Manchester next year, because you should have been here.
I know.
Last year.
We had tickets, and we still have got tickets.
Well, I hope they're still good.
I hope so as well.
We were so excited, and when it got postponed, we were like, oh, maybe it will happen in 2021. And then I think we did get a rescheduled date, and then you got another one, didn't you? And you were like, oh, it's on the Thursday now. And when I looked at it, I was like, no, this is 2022, not 2021. But at least it's happening, so we're very excited.
We just lost a year or two. It just evaporated. Yeah. Well, we were in the beginning. We were rescheduling for like a few months later. All these festivals from last summer, working to the fall, and then everybody said, So we've been learning that it's going to take a while. I'm lazy now. I haven't been in an airplane for a year and a half. So I've lost my momentum. I used to live in airplanes. And so now it's going to take a lot of, energy to get me.
So you will be coming back, is that?
Yes, I will be coming.
I'll keep the tickets. And will that be part of a longer tour, part of a British tour or European tour?
Well, we always do, combine several dates at once. It's not worth it. I live all the way in California. So it's, it's a long trek.
Yeah.
So if I come over there, I'm going to do a few things. Yeah, not just one.
A few things in the UK, or? Well,
it could be UK, it could be that long lost European Union.
Oh yeah. Well, if we're allowed back into Europe, we might come and see you in Europe as well.
Oh, good.
They let us back in.
So everything's changing over there, right?
Yeah.
So could we just ask you a couple of questions about your music and your performance and what have you? So the question I have is relating to quadraphonic sound, because I've heard that you only use quads in your performances, and I was wondering if that's a challenge for a venue, because we know the band on the wall venue, and we're just wondering the sort of technicalities of that. You know, how does the venue accommodate quadraphonic sound?
Well, it is a bit of a challenge for the venue, but they've always risen to the occasion because, as you've noted, I mean, I play only in quad, so it's non-negotiable. I can't say, well, all right, I'll do it in stereo, but that's because from the very beginning, Don Buchla, who designed the instrument that I play, had a vision from the beginning that sound should move spatially, and that part of the possibilities of electronic music was creating these illusionary spaces. And so I grew up in that, and I always played that way. And it's been a problem, in the 70s when I wanted to perform in New York City at Lincoln Center. And they said, well, no, we can't put two more speakers in the theater. And I said, well, then I can't play. So I'm non-negotiable on that. And I found that this time around, when I go out to perform, I can always get it. The only tricky thing is that the back speakers have to be equal to the front speakers. They're not just an add-on in the back of the room. It's actually, one controlled space.
So 4 identical speakers, yeah.
4 identical speakers, yeah. Sometimes, depending on the size of the venue, there's also subwoofer. And if it's a smaller place, then the subwoofer, the bass tends to be less directional than the high end. But in a large venue, you actually need, the 4 subwoofers as well. And it surprises me, really, how well it works. I played in Royal Albert Hall, which was this big oval
That's a nice room, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's made for me, I think. So, yeah, I love it. Let's go there. Let's do the concert.
Okay.
Oh, we'll be first in the queue for tickets for that. Definitely.
And your equipment, how is the signal divided across 4 speakers? Is there a certain sort of mix that the venue would require to have, or is it something you travel with?
Well, I have a particular module that Buchla designed called the 227. Actually, you can see it right there. That's
okay.
it. And it uses voltage control. So in electronic music, all the parameters of a sound can be voltage controlled. So you have the pitch, you have the amplitude. You can apply a voltage, make the amplitude go louder and softer. With the pitch, you can change the pitch. And also the position in a spatial field. So basically, it's 4 mono signals that then get sent out independently, and that's the 4 speakers. So the sound is moving. Just imagine sometimes the sound will be moving in a consistent, say, circle or a spiral. Sometimes it'll be randomly jumping from one speaker to another. Sometimes it'll be smooth. Sometimes it'll be very pinpointed. So it's just a way, it's one more musical parameter. And the other aspect of that has to do with the processing. So is a sound close to you or farther away?
Yeah.
Can it move closer to you and move farther away? And that has to do with the reverb, say. If a sound is more reverbed, it appears to be more distant.
Yeah.
So you can also put a control voltage on the amount of reverb. All these things happen, however, usually, it depends, but very quickly. One of the beauties of electronic music is that you can coordinate the movement with the rhythm. So while you're controlling the rhythm, say of a sequence or of a pattern, you can also control the motion with an integrated voltage, so that if the sound is moving, it will move rhythmically. This is unique to electronic music because now people are interested in spatial music, but most of the space is designed post-production. So you have a piece of music, and then you go inside and you move things around.
Yeah.
This space is generated as part of the musical material from the beginning. So it's a little bit different. And it's, for me, it's all because Don Buchla designed a module that could do that. Yeah.
So at one of your shows, is there a place that's best to stand?
Just as we've got tickets.
Or does it not matter?
Fight your way into the middle. Theoretically, it's best in the middle.
Yeah.
I have, some very polite techniques so that everybody can experience the spatial nature of the music, no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry.
We'll still be there first. We'll get there really early. First in the queue. I'm not moving from Peter now.
Well, that was one of my questions. You had something.
I've got a question. Yes.
Tune with the.
Yes, because I've obviously seen on YouTube and other formats you performing with your Buchla 200E, and I can see there's a lot of wires and a lot of patching in that instrument. So I've got two questions. One, in terms of traveling with it, i.e. putting it on a plane, how do you deal with that? Does it have to go in hold, and do you have to just have fingers crossed that it's going to come out the other end? And then setting up for a gig, do you leave the patches in, or how much setup do you have to do to get it patched how you need it to be before the gig?
It's a lot of wire.
What I travel with now is a very compact Buchla 200E system, so I have to make some compromises in terms of the portability of it because I am traveling. When I started out in this episodic, touring about 5 years ago, I had a white, very light suitcase. So Don Buchla was aware that, he was designing a performance instrument and he wanted it to be portable. And he understood that if you design a case properly, it does not have to be big and heavy.
Yeah.
Because the heavier it is, the more they drop it.
Yeah.
My only requirement was that the case be hand carried, no wheels, because the vibration would be very bad. Actually, the vibration in the airplane is not good for the instrument. But you're right. I was just, fingers crossed and saying, if it arrives safely, I go, I have a concert. If it doesn't. And so far, so good. My most difficult point of entry has been London.
Oh, really?
So, yes. They are the roughest baggage handlers in the world. I hate to say it, but I did one concert and it arrived and the wooden side panels were broken and screws were out and the spatial modulator was bent. And I'm always very calm because the first time around in my career, I was not calm.
Mm.
And I realized that, this is a gift. If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Be graceful about, I'm thankful when it arrives safely. Well, anyway, I did that white case, hand carried, for about 4 years. And then, after my experiences in London, really, at what's the big airport?
Heathrow?
Yeah, Heathrow. I realized that I needed more. And so I have a case now that allows me to carry. I travel as baggage, and this particular suitcase just meets the dimensional and weight limits of the airlines.
Yeah.
So I put it in a heavier case, and then in my closed suitcase, I have all the wires. I travel with one, nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it's all stuff. But so far, so good. So I hope, hope it works.
So all the wires, it needs repatching each time, does it?
Yes, I repatch about 100 cables
Wow.
each
How,
time.
how long does that take?
Well, when I started out, when I was first making my comeback doing live performance, I actually had, a listing of the patching, and I would check it and double check it and make sure, because you can't make a mistake.
No.
Once those patches are in, diagnosing, at the last minute is really impossible. So I had a kind of a double check system of making sure everything was right. But by now I can do it in my sleep. I just boom, 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 boom. I don't even have to think.
Yeah.
But that's because I have I have kind of an optimal patch that functions well in this limited universe that I travel with.
I had a question about software synths. I noticed, I think on one of your performances we saw, it looked like you were using an iPad with
Yes,
some bit of magic on it.
absolutely. What a dream. If you're touring and you can carry an iPad, which takes up no weight at all, right? You
Yeah.
can just put that in your purse. Um, I was working with an engineer from Moog. I was having problems with my Buchla, and they were nice enough to donate, a support system to me to come and do some measurements and see if we could figure out, what needed to be fixed. And while he was here, he showed me the animal that he had been one of the designers in it.
Yeah.
And I would never have that, I'm a real Buchla person.
Yeah.
That's my life. But I saw this little thing, and I'll never forget playing one time in Barcelona with thousands of people, with these huge speakers. And I used the Animoog, as an ancillary uh, helper, because it's such a small system that I'm playing with. And I remember hitting the bass note on this little iPad, and it filled the room with this enormous sound.
Oh, wow.
It was just amazing, because this is the nature of electronics,
Mm.
right? It's a tiny little thing that then goes through an amplification system. Everybody uses that amplification. Why do you think rock and roll players are so, punchy and loud? It's not that little guitar. It's the amplification.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I forgot what we were
So
talking
you would recommend a software synth as part of a setup,
You
kind of accompanying the Buchla
yeah.
or the
I
system.
mean, I love it. I love the Animoog also because of the way it produces sound. The thing about the one thing I don't like is sampled sound. So I don't like anything that arrives, dead on arrival, that it's already done,
Yeah.
that it's not in the moment, it's not generating itself.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of analog electronic, is that the sound is living right there.
Yeah.
It's moving, it's breathing, it's generated. So the Animoog, as its name suggests, is animated. It has a different source of sound synthesis it also has a lovely interface. So Don Buchla was devoted to designing musical interfaces for these instruments. How do you interact with them? And he had a touch plate. So instead of a traditional black and white keyboard, which is what, say, Moog had or what you see often, he had a touch plate, a fretted keyboard, sometimes a purely flat keyboard. And these interfaces give you different ways of moving, interacting with the sound. Don also designed other interfaces like something called the marimba lumina, which is like for a mallet instrument, how you play electronics, or the thunder and lightning, which are these like Star Wars types of handheld laser beams, that move the sound. So the interface is part of the whole, instrument.
Yeah.
How you play it.
Okay, thank you. Your turn.
Oh, yes. I know recently you have been involved with a documentary, Sisters with Transistors, which we actually watched the other week. But if you could tell the listener a little bit about it and how you got involved with that, that would be great.
Well, once again, we have to thank the Brits for producing the director, Lisa Rovner, who created this brilliant documentary. I was surprised. She had come to my studio here in Northern California, I don't know, a couple, maybe 3 years ago even, and said she wanted to make a film called Sisters with Transistors. And I thought, oh no, what a ridiculous name. It was like Rosie the Riveter. It was like, it just seemed so outlandish. And I didn't know where she was coming from. And I kind of forgot about it. And then, she reappeared. And what she did was brilliant. She tracked down never seen footage, original footage of the historic presence and work of women. And again, the Brits were primary in a lot of this. Delia Derbyshire, Daphne Oram, the Radiophonic Workshop. All those were, little incubuses of electronic music. Most of the women have passed away, right? But they had a history that we ourselves didn't know. So I had never heard of Daphne Oram till 2 years ago when I played at Royal Albert Hall, and she had a piece premiered. The piece that they premiered, first performance, was 71 years after she wrote it.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So what we're beginning to uncover is just the fact that we do not know. We have not known the history of women in music technology. And if we do go to uncover it, we find that so many women were working independently in this field. Why? Because they needed to find an independent outlet for their creativity. We weren't allowed, Daphne couldn't get her orchestral piece performed. There were no doors open to women composers. And so they gravitated to music technology because it gave them complete control to do it. And that was a story that repeated itself over and over, but we just didn't ever connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting documentary. Really good, because I learned stuff. There was artists on there that I'd never heard of before, and it's amazing what people were doing back in the day. So it's great.
Her story as opposed to his story. His story is it is. So we're just starting to realize that there is a history of her story.
Yeah.
Interesting. during lockdown, we asked this question on one of the live chats. What was it?
Oh, we did, yeah. It was one of the Sisters with Transistors chats.
Oh, that's right.
Wasn't it?
We sent a question in. It was relating to whether during the lockdown period you've been composing. And I seem to think your answer was something along the lines of you've been organising your back catalogue, or
and your computer had broken, and then you were organising your back catalogue. Couldn't benefit fully from lockdown.
Right. It was not what I expected to happen. I was so looking forward to going into my bubble and concentrating, because with all the touring, I just never had time to really, focus on recording. Or, I mean, I record my live performances, but I wanted to do some studio work. And my computer broke. So then, one thing leads to another in technology. You get a new computer, then you have new software, then you need new hardware because it doesn't integrate. And then nothing worked out. And then I decided that the pandemic was the time to face the storage unit. It was filled with stuff I brought out from New York 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a huge, huge job. I'm not quite done, but I have really, made a lot of progress in my what I call archive. Who knows, what it's all for, where it will all go. But as you get older, you start to have, you realize your responsibility to at least organize the stuff, whatever.
is it something, are you planning to release this material as part of the archive, that, a public archive, or?
Well, Andy Votel at Finders Keepers has already released a lot of the tapes that were from these, things that I did in my garage in Berkeley. Things that had absolutely no value. Because, I started out in my garage in Berkeley, but then I went to Los Angeles, then I went to New York for 19 years, and I was working in, state-of-the-art music production facilities. So I had forgotten about those early tapes. And Andy, he just amazed me. I said, who would care about those? But, we have different ways of evaluating things. I evaluated my music. I worked my whole life to get enough money to self-produce my perfect recordings. And I had forgotten about the things that I tossed off, but that were closer to the young composer who first encountered this machine, and the romance, the falling in love with that machine. Yeah. So those are the early recordings.
You had a question about the piano?
I have got a question about the piano, because I've got a piano background, and did all my grades and stuck to the classical music. And recently we've been doing some electronic music, which is completely different. And I always feel like I need to go back to a keyboard when, I've just started with Eurorack, and I'm trying to get out of the habit of using a keyboard. Is there any crossover in the work that you do, or between the piano and the booklet, or are they two completely separate entities?
They could not be more separate.
Yeah.
So they are so separate. You see, in the beginning, I was a pianist. I had grown up as a pianist, and I was a classical composer. So I had just gotten my master's degree in composition when I was in Berkeley. When I met Don Buchla, he proselytized me. One of the dangers of the perception of electronic musical instruments, the danger was that people would see it as a traditional instrument, which is what happened with the Moog. So they thought it was a keyboard instrument. And so as a Buchla person, I did not use a keyboard, and in fact, I became, it's like Clockwork Orange, where they program you.
Yeah.
It gets programmed. I basically couldn't even touch a piano, when I mean, there are instances where I integrated piano with the Buchla, and I did have a dream of doing that, but I never used a keyboard, a traditional keyboard,
Yeah.
in the traditional way with the Buchla. And so now that I'm back with the Buchla, I have not touched, I have a piano here, but I haven't touched it in.
Oh my goodness.
When are you starting to perform music again outside of your house? Is this on the agenda?
Well, it's been so stop and go, and there's so much lost energy in hopefulness, where you reschedule something from the spring to the fall, from the fall to the spring, from the spring to the summer, from the summer to the fall. And that's what's been happening, is these, kind of hopeful, and it's exhausting. So I just basically said, I'm not completely in charge, because Rachel is coordinating everything, and but the most secure possibility is actually next year. When is the Manchester scheduled for?
That is the 24th of June, 2022. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be fine.
Okay. We will possibly, everything going ahead, see you next year, and we will come and say hello.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, it's been lovely to speak with you both. Is that your
You,
phone?
I think that's your end. I think.
Yeah, it's not our end, no.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Have a great birthday.
Okay, take care.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Nicholas.